Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Lena Mutiga. Karibuni sana. Today we have another interesting vlog. We're still doing the farming series and we want to see how do you grow your groundnuts from the soil preparation to the time you harvest until you make that good money after selling your groundnut to the market. As we all know, people really love eating the groundnuts. They are really good for our health, and most farmers that who grow groundnuts really get a lot of profit from it, since the market is really wide, and they will make they will be able to get that profit at the end of the day. So as always, we always start with the soil preparation. Okay, I said once we started this farming series, I the first thing we looked into is about the soil pH and your soil, the testing of the soil fertility. That is what we first looked at. So please, if you have not done those investigations to check on your soil fertility and to check on your soil pH, please do, so that you will be able to continue with the farming. If you want to look into the groundnuts, for example, groundnut farming, for example, because I'll be giving you the pH requirement for the soil, and if you didn't do that study, then you'll not be able to know if your farm will do well, if you'll have a good harvest after you have planted groundnuts or not. So the first thing that you should do, groundnuts thrive in a deep, loose, well-drained sandy soil without compaction layers. Okay, so groundnuts do well in loose, well-drained soil. Now, groundnuts mostly do well in this sandy soil, in areas with the soil that looks a bit of sandy soil, or they also do well in arid areas, not the completely dry areas, the desert areas, but areas that receive less rainfall. And for the soil pH should be between 6 and 6.5 for optimal yield. That is why I said you have to be remembering what was the soil pH that you tested at the beginning of this farming series. After that, ensure the soil is well drained and free from weeds before planting. We always say that the weeds are the greatest enemy of the farmer. Crop rotation, rotate groundnuts with other crops like maize to reduce pest and diseases build-up. Do not This season do not plant groundnuts, then the next season you plant groundnuts, and the other season you plant groundnuts. No, make sure you're doing some crop rotation. If this season you have planted some groundnuts, the next season plant some maize. To the planting, plant when the soil is moist. Do not plant when you have a very dry, your soil is very dry. Make sure before you plant your soil is moist. Spacing between rows 40 to 50 centimeters. So you will plant groundnuts in rows. The spacing between the two rows should be 40 to 50 centimeters. Between one plant in a row should be 7.5 to 10 centimeters. Generally do 10 centimeters from one plant to the other. Okay, the depth, plant seeds 3 to 5 centimeters deep. That is the required depth. And the seed quality, test seed germination before planting to ensure good quality. You might plant groundnuts that will not grow. That is why I'm still insisting on check, will this, if I plant these groundnuts, will they grow? You can take a portion of them, for example, from the seeds that you've bought for planting. Take a sample or a handful of the seeds, try planting the handful, and see out of the ones that you planted how many have germinated. That will help you know if after it will help you know the probability of the seeds that are likely to germinate after you plant. Okay, planting method, sow seeds in rows, ensuring one seed per hole. I've already talked about that, but I've not said how many seeds you should put in one hole. That is one seed per hole. Fertilizer application. Apply fertilizer separately and cover with soil before planting seeds. Okay, after you have after you've cultivated, or after you've removed the weeds from your farm, you can do the fertilizer, then mix the fertilizer with your soil before you start the digging of the holes or the making of the rows. You make sure that you have fertilized your soil. A basal application of 40 to 50 to 60 of phosphorus per hectare is recommended. That is the recommendation of the amount of the fertilizer and the type of the fertilizer that you should put in your farm. A top dressing of nitrogen fertilizer may be applied at earlier pods formation stage. After they have germinated, once you realize that they are about to do the podding phase, that is when you apply the nitrogen fertilizer. It will really help in their growth and their yield. Okay, post planting care, weed regularly. That is number one. That is what we always say. Because I insist on weeding. If your farm has some weeds, it means the crops and the weeds will compete for the nutrients in the soil, and therefore your groundnuts will not give you the yield that you would like or that you would expect. Pest and diseases management. The common pests that are found in groundnut, their example are aphids, termites, and beetles, among many others. So be observant to check on which pests that might affect your groundnut growth. Please go to the nearest farmer's store and ensure you get the best chemicals that you will use to remove those pests, or to ensure that the pests are not are not affecting your farm anymore. The common diseases, e.g., the early leaf spot, late leaf spot, and rusts, among many others. Be keen to note on what is affecting your farm and take the corrective measures. Early detection, regular inspection of plants for signs of pests and diseases. That is why I always say, as a farmer, you have to be so close. Make your crops your closest friend, because after you do that, you will realize these pests and diseases at a very early stage before it is prolonged or before the damage cannot be reversed. That is why you have to always be very observant, be very keen, so that you will take the corrective measures on time. Watering, of course, water regularly, especially during dry periods, but avoid overwatering. Groundnuts do not require so much water, but you ensure that you water them generally. And then after that, when plants reduce yellow flowers, 30 to 40 days, approximately between 30 to 40 days, that is around 1 month, 2 weeks, 10 days, we can take it for 7 days. So that is about 1 month, 2 weeks. Mount soil around the base of the plant so peanut pegs can push into the soil. I hope you've understood that. And up to that point, I think that is it for the groundnuts plantation and growth. We have come to the end of the video. I know this has been a short and a quick one. I didn't want to take much of your time, since groundnuts do not require a lot of care, a lot of planting processes that you should follow. And thank you so much for watching till the end. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, like, share, hit that notification bell so that each and every time I'll be uploading, you will be notified. Till the next one, bye bye.